The night was colder than usual in Maplewood, a quiet suburban town tucked just outside Seattle. A soft drizzle coated the streets, making every porch light shimmer like a lonely beacon in the dark. Inside a small two-bedroom apartment on Willow Court, Daniel Hale stood in front of the hallway mirror, again, smoothing the same shirt for the fourth time. Welcome back to my channel, Classic Stories. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Now, let's dive into the story. He hated nights like this, nights where he tried to be someone other than Dad. For the last 3 years, that was his whole identity. Single father, provider, protector, the one who made breakfast, checked homework, patched scraped knees, and still somehow found the strength to smile through exhaustion. His 7-year-old daughter, Emily, peeked out from her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, are you leaving?" Daniel knelt in front of her, brushing a curly strand behind her ear. "Just for a little while, sweetheart. Aunt Lily will stay with you." She nodded, trusting him completely, something that always filled him with pride and guilt at the same time. He wasn't sure why he had agreed to this blind date. Maybe loneliness, maybe hope, maybe the simple fact that his best friend kept saying, "Man, you deserve to be more than tired." Just as he exhaled and turned away from the mirror, a knock echoed through the apartment. 3 knocks. Sharp, nervous, not the kind delivered by someone comfortable or confident. His pulse jumped. This was it. Daniel opened the door and froze. A woman stood there, soaked slightly from the drizzle, auburn hair tied messily at the back, curls escaping from every direction. Her eyes, hazel, tired, careful, lifted to meet his. She clutched her purse like a shield. And then, in a trembling whisper, she said the last thing he expected to hear. "My kid's in the car." For a second, everything in Daniel went completely still. Not because he was shocked, but because he understood. He had shown up to places before, not as a single man, but as a father carrying 2 lives on his shoulders. He knew the fear of being judged. He knew the shame of having to apologize for responsibilities you never chose, but would die defending. After what felt like an eternity, he finally found his voice. "Bring them in," he said softly. She blinked, clearly surprised. "Are you sure? I know this was supposed to be a real date, and I know what it's supposed to be," he replied gently. "But we don't live those kind of lives anymore, do we?" Her lips parted, and something fragile flickered in her eyes. Relief. She nodded, rushing back toward the car. Daniel stood silently, breath fogging the cold air, as 2 little figures stepped out. A boy no older than 5, gripping a worn stuffed bunny, and a younger toddler girl with pigtails who immediately clung to her mother's leg. "Come on in," Daniel said, stepping aside. Emily peeked around the corner, and just like that, 2 families who didn't know they needed each other ended up standing in the same doorway. The date Daniel had imagined, dinner, candles, soft music, evaporated instantly. Instead, the night turned into something else entirely. Chicken nuggets on mismatched plates, sippy cups and apple juice, couch cushions on the floor, kids laughing uncontrollably at who could make the loudest monster sound. And somehow, it was perfect. Daniel watched the woman, Claire Whitmore, as she helped her toddler into a chair. She looked tired, worn out, like someone who had carried storms that had no name. But when she smiled at her children, the whole room softened. Emily shared her crayons with Claire's son, helping him color a superhero cape. The toddler fell asleep on Daniel's couch, holding onto the stuffed bunny like it was her whole world. Later in the evening, when all the kids were finally asleep, the apartment fell into that rare kind of silence single parents know, the kind that feels like a blessing. They sat on the couch, 2 cups of barely warm coffee between them, and that's when she told him her story. "I was married," she began quietly, staring into her hands. "But the man I married wasn't the man I ended up with." She talked about promises that dissolved into betrayals, about dreams that turned into apologies, about leaving in the middle of the night with nothing but 2 kids and a car full of fear. "I didn't think I'd even make it to this date," she whispered. "I almost turned back 3 times, but something told me I had to try." Daniel nodded, because he knew that feeling too. Emily's mother had walked away when she realized motherhood wasn't glamorous. And while Daniel never spoke ill of her, the hurt she left behind had shaped every part of him. The exhaustion, the caution, the tenderness. "Claire," he said softly, "you didn't have to be perfect to show up here. You just had to be honest." She looked up, eyes shimmering, and exhaled a shaky breath. There were no dramatic confessions, no sudden declarations, just small steps. They began seeing each other again, always with the kids. Playdates turned into Saturday afternoons at the park. Saturday afternoons turned into early evening picnics. Picnics turned into movie nights where 4 children fell asleep on the same couch. And somewhere between spilled juice, late-night talks, playground runs, and shared exhaustion, Daniel and Claire slowly found pieces of themselves they didn't know still existed. But it wasn't easy. There were nights Claire panicked, fearing she wasn't enough. There were days Daniel doubted he could balance everything. Yet every single time, they found their way back to the same truth. They understood each other without explaining anything, because they had lived the same storms. One crisp autumn evening, their small, chaotic group visited the annual Maplewood Harvest Fair. Orange lights, warm cider, children running between pumpkin stalls, laughter echoing through the air. Claire stood near a booth watching the kids play when she noticed Daniel staring at her. "Why are you looking at me like that?" She laughed nervously. He stepped toward her, voice low. "Because I've never seen you this happy." She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. No one had said something like that to her in years. The breeze brushed past them, carrying leaves across their feet. And then, quietly, almost shyly, Daniel reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her breath caught, not because of the touch, but because of the gentleness in it. "Claire," he whispered, "you deserve a life filled with moments like this." She didn't kiss him. He didn't kiss her. But in that moment, something deeper than a kiss happened. Trust. Months later, on a golden Sunday morning, Daniel stood again at the door where everything began. But this time, Claire wasn't trembling. Her children weren't hiding behind her. Instead, all 4 kids rushed inside laughing, arguing over snacks and cartoons. The house, his once quiet, lonely apartment, now sounded like a home. Claire stood beside him, her hand gently slipping into his. "This place," she whispered, looking around, "it feels like safety." Daniel turned to her. "Claire." She looked up. "Am I beautiful?" Not in a flirty way, not seeking validation, but in the quiet, honest, vulnerable way of a woman who'd been told too many times that she wasn't enough. Daniel stepped closer, lifting her chin with 2 fingers. "No," he whispered. Her breath hitched. Then he smiled softly. "You're breathtaking." Her eyes filled instantly. And then, for the first time, their lips met. A gentle kiss. A grateful kiss. A beginning. Not perfection. Not fantasy. But 2 broken families stitching themselves together. By choice. People often think the most powerful words in love stories are "I love you." But they're wrong. Love begins much earlier. Much quieter. Much softer. For Daniel and Claire, it began the moment he opened his worn apartment door and said 2 simple words that carried a universe of kindness. "Bring them in." Because love isn't always found in candlelight and roses. Sometimes it arrives in the form of tired eyes, messy hair, nervous whispers, and children holding stuffed bunnies. Sometimes love walks right up to your door, broken, scared, and hopeful, and all you have to do is open the door